Hello, hello. Hopefully you can hear me. I've hopefully figured out my technical difficulties from last week. So hopefully we can have a little better week this week. Again, I'm going to try to start doing this every week and
The world's simplest and cleanest humidifier. Now with new
and still having technical difficulties. So I usually I've got a computer over here. I try to watch the live chat in case I miss something. And then the software that I use has a chat here in front of me. So that's what I was missing last week. And I'm hoping rather than ramble on like I did last week, I'm hoping to be able to just kind of take questions as they come in. And if no questions come in, I've got a few topics I think would be helpful. So hello out there, retired person and tech junkie. Great to have you back again. So he says he's already got a question, which is great. Again, I'm going to try to, rather than just, I felt like last week I was going through every single comment and I missed some things, and it was a lot of rambling. And so instead of doing that again, I'm just gonna, if I see a question, I'm gonna hit it. But otherwise, I'm gonna try to not read through every single little comment, so it's hopefully a little more entertaining. I did want to start out this show by giving out a shout to Mikey Pipes. He's one of the guys that I follow when I'm watching YouTube stuff. He's a pretty entertaining guy, pretty fun on a lot of his stuff, but his channel hit over 100,000. In fact, he's already blown way past that. And I think the cool thing about that, the reason I even bring it up on my channel, is the fact that it shows how much hunger there is, or how much demand there is for knowledge in our industry. There's people that just, they're following guys like Mikey and myself, trying to learn what they can, which, it just shows how well he's doing that demand. Now, I would say Mikey's stuff is a lot more entertaining than mine is, but I'm going to work on that. I'm going to, I've got an editor that helps me with some things, and he's going to help me make some of the videos a little more entertaining, maybe a little funnier, still full of information. I'm not going to get off of that, but we're going to sprinkle in a little humor here and there, hopefully, is the goal, right? My wife says I'm not funny, so we'll try. So all right, my air duct in the attic, I have a 12x4 registers. Problem is, the contractor said he can do round diffusers. Is that the best, or should I go curved blade registers? I think every house is different. The big thing with the round diffusers or vents, registers, whatever verbiage you want to use, we've used those in houses, but so when I do my square or rectangular vents and I get them close to a wall, trying to scrub that wall, you can't do that with the round registers because they're going to blow directly on the wall. And in some homes, now if it's insulated really good, no problem. But if it's round and it's blowing directly on a wall that's not necessarily insulated real well, I have seen sweating walls before. So in a lot of those houses that we see round registers or diffusers, we will, those are going to be closer to the center of the room, if that makes sense. So if you're replacing those 12x4 vents close to the wall, I would not recommend going back in that same hole or same area with a round one. You could see an issue. I'm not saying you're going to, but I have seen that before, and that's usually the issue. My main complaint is the air is blowing on my people. I hate that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is one good thing about the round. So the round diffusers, if any of you guys have never been around them, so those, the air literally will blow across the ceiling. Like you almost have to put your hand right up to the ceiling, almost touching the ceiling to feel the air coming out. So he's he's definitely right about that. Yeah, so if any of you guys have any questions, go ahead and pop in here with a question. Nice joke, Ramon. I use that joke from time to time. Let me before, while we're waiting on some questions to come through, do you have any experience stratification with round? Do you ever experienced? Well, we don't install them a whole lot, to be honest with you. So I'm not sure I'm the best guy to ask these questions to, but we have installed them, and we usually don't get a whole lot of complaints other than we have had some people not like the cosmetic look of them. So, that's another thing, but I'm not sure I can answer that question. Have you ever experienced stratification with round diffusers? I have not. That's the answer. I have not. Anyway, so let me tell you a quick story as we're waiting for more questions to come in. I just got word a couple weeks ago that we are not going to have to go to court. And so let me preface that and tell you the story. So you might say, well, Josh, what are you doing in court? Is somebody suing you? Nobody's suing me. We were possibly going to have to be witnesses, I guess. We were going to be called to the stand in this court case. And what happened was a couple years ago, we got called out to a house that the homeowner, the guy who owned the house, had said, hey, I'm getting some odors coming out of my registers. It smells like fish in my house. After the last renters left, can you clean our ducts? And we came out, and make a long story short, this renter on his way out had dumped buckets of fish guts, fish heads, squid, all this crazy stuff down their floor vents into the ductwork. And I can't even exaggerate how much it was. I mean, we were taking pictures of it, which came into play later. I'll tell you why in just a second. But it was just so crazy. We were taking pictures of it. My guys were sending me pictures of it saying, my gosh, look how much we've pulled out of here. And the ductwork was essentially, there was no cleaning the ducts. They were full of this stuff. And so we ultimately ended up, the money he would have spent for us to try to remove everything and clean it. I mean, it would have been crazy. That it wasn't that big of a house, and everything was accessible from underneath. It was a garage barn kind of look with an apartment above it that he was renting out. So we were able to get to everything, including the air handler beneath. And so we ended up removing all of this, removing all the ductwork and putting it all back in new. Fast forward a year and a half to, well, I guess it's been a couple years now later, we get a phone call from a lawyer. And the sad part is he notified us that the landlord had passed away, that the original guy who had hired us and had us do the work in those 2 years had passed away. But ultimately, they were going after this guy. Even with the landlord who had passed away, they were going after this renter for this crime, I guess. And wanted it came into play because we had taken these pictures and they wanted them. They wanted the pictures, and they wanted to talk to whoever had been on the job site and the owner of the company, which was me. So it was just crazy. Ultimately, as I said, we were notified recently that we're not going to be going to court now. I guess they settled out of court, or the guy took a plea deal, or I have no idea. But it was just the craziest thing happened. And I don't know, maybe if any of you care to see them, maybe I'll get the pictures at some point, and show them to you. But I mean, it's essentially just pictures of fish guts and squids and things like that these people had poured down this guy's ductwork. So it was just the craziest thing. So, anyway, I have to replace a broken 2006 Goodman AC compressor. So 2006, almost 20 years old. Got your money's worth out of that. That's awesome. A lot of people like to bash Goodman, but I've seen some of them last quite a while if installed properly. That's emitting 200 ppm of CO. I wanted a Daikin fit, but there are no local vendors installers in the ideas. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. If Daikin doesn't have a dealer in your area yet, they probably will eventually. They're the largest in the country. But the only thing I would say that if you just really have your heart set on a Daikin fit is I would not want to be anyone's guinea pig. So in other words, if you find a company that is willing to install the Daikin fit, but you would be their first installation of the product, I wouldn't want to be their guinea pig if I were you. The fit, I think, is an amazing product, but there is a little bit of a learning curve. We had to, install one and learn how to set up the Daikin one and all of that before we were off and running. So I wouldn't want to be anyone's guinea pig. But what you could be is Amana now has, I don't know if it's come out. I'm not an Amana dealer, but I do know they were showcasing it at AHR, and Amana has come out with, I believe they're calling it their S series or S heat pump. And it's essentially the Daikin fit. Now, it does not have the Daikin 1 controller. I think it's a different controller, but it's basically the same setup as a fit as far as the equipment goes. So that might be an idea for you, Mr. Diaz or Ms. Diaz. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if you're a man or woman, but that might be something you could do. If you really want to fit, then maybe see if you've got an Amana dealer in your area. If you can't find a Daikin dealer, and go with their new S series heat pump that they've got coming out. It's essentially a fit is what it is. I asked before, when are you two coming? Types of duct work for a new custom home I am planning. I would like to know your opinions on which types to use where. So I saw that comment, and we may do a video on that eventually, on the different types of duct work. There are different parts of the country. So one thing that matters is where you are in the country. There are parts of the country that use ductboard predominantly. And I don't know if that's because the galvanized steel ductwork that we use, if it just rusts out quicker, or I can only assume that that's why, but there are parts of the country that it makes more sense to do, this type of material. And then there are other parts of the country where it makes more sense to do that type of material. I don't know that I would be as focused on it as much as you seem to be, in my opinion. Now, you do you, but it seems like I don't know that would be the first thing I would be worried about. But, if you're worried about it, then be worried about it. So you're in Tennessee. So you're very similar to us in Virginia. Maybe not quite as similar as far as I'm closer to the coast. But I think I am planning to do a video soon. At least we've talked about it, about doing a video on the different types of R value with insulation. And, like some of the bubble wraps that are out there, how some are different R values, why they're different R values, how to get higher R values out of them. Some of them require an air gap. Things like that. So we're going to be doing a video soon on that sort of stuff. But as far as the material that your ductwork is worried that it's made of, I would probably call your 3 best contractors in your area and see what they're installing the most of and what they're having the most success with. And, most ductwork, if installed properly and taken care of, and it's not in a super damp location and things like that, is going to last you longer than the heating and air equipment anyway. At least in our area, that's true. So as long as everything's installed right, sized right, and taken care of, and it's not in a harsh environment. We have some customers that their homes are elevated on stilts or something similar to that. We're near the coast, and they built it to be above the certain height if water were to ever get high, and they've run the ductwork pretty much exposed. Now it's not sitting outside in the rain, but it's running underneath the house with plenty of airflow, with no foundation. There's no foundation or foundation vents or anything like that. It's not encapsulated. It's open air. And, so we'll see ductwork in those types of environments that might not last as long. But other than that, I mean, we've got customers that they're on their third heating and air system since they bought the house decades ago, and they still have the same ductwork. Maybe they've had to patch a little bit here and there, but the ductwork was installed great and it's sized right, and they're not having any issues. So let's see. Sorry, I'm just reading through some of your comments here. What is a ballpark price? I don't do ballpark prices because I could tell you I help people with the new HVAC guide across the country, and I've got customers in some states that pay triple what we pay here in Virginia and have no choice. That's the going rate in their area. And then I've got customers that I help in certain states that maybe at least maybe if you let me know where you're at in the country, Uncle Fester, and maybe I can let you know a little bit. But ultimately, I don't do ballpark pricing because it doesn't matter what a ballpark price would be in my area if no one in your area does work for that price. We don't have unions here, or at least we don't have mandatory unions. Maybe it might be the better way to say it. I know some states, I don't know if they're mandatory, but yeah, so I know nothing about Michigan. I wish I could help, but I can't, I would just recommend calling, at least getting at least 3 quotes and find the best contractor. And, if you have to pay more than what someone would have to pay here, sorry. If you pay less, even better. Every area is different. And there's, different, obviously the cost of living, whether or not your state has unions, whether or not your state has higher taxes. All those things play a role in what you have to pay to have heating and air work done, unfortunately. Let's see. Very in depth, blah, blah, blah. And if I miss any of your questions, just put it in there again. I'm trying to make sure I hit everything, but I'm probably won't. Let's see. Mary, I have never heard of that brand, so good luck with that. Installed tomorrow in SD County Air Pro 2 Slimline. So maybe that's just a newer product, but I've never heard of that brand. So hopefully it goes well for you. How do you get the manual D? Manual D and manual J are calculations that heating and air guys use to size things. Manual D is more for the ductwork, making sure that you have properly sized ductwork. A lot of folks don't realize there is a such thing as oversizing the ductwork. If you don't have enough static to push air to the farthest ends of the home, there is a such thing as oversizing the ductwork. But I would say, I don't want to say 90% of homes, but I think it would be very safe to say that the majority of homes being built even today, the ductwork is undersized for the house. So manual J, manual D, that's just terms guys use for, sizing the the ductwork and or the heating and air system. And contrary to the belief that some heating and air guys have, it is not optional, in my opinion. Some heating and air guys will tell you that, oh, we use rule of thumb and blah, blah, blah. I've been doing this for years, sort of deal. But, those are usually the folks that we go behind them and fix their problems. So anyway, if any of you other folks have a question, heat and air related, or relating to anything else, my wife and I and her family, we just took a trip to Waco, Texas this past weekend. I'll share that with you. And it's not an option. It's actually law. Believe it or not, it is not law in all states. There are some states that it is not even law right now to hold a license to do heating and air work right now. Now, what states that are there, I don't have in front of me which states are which, but there are states that you don't even have to be licensed to. I do think it's code now in most parts. Yeah. I mean, it should be, but I can tell you here in Virginia, I've never had an inspector prove to me that I've sized the ductwork correctly. Now we have duct blast tests and blower door tests and all these different tests to make sure that it's sealed right and things like that. But I'm going to look that up, Mary. AC Pro 2 Slimline. Bear with me just a second. AC Pro 2 Slimline. Yeah, Mary, I don't even, that's not even, Google's not even bringing that up. So that's it's not a common brand. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's one of those private label brands. But I'm just not familiar with that brand. I'm not saying that, you should be scared because of that, but it's just not a brand I've ever heard of. Usually if there's a brand I've never heard of, it's one of two things. In some cases, it's a off-brand of some Chinese company that they are. I think I may have found it, acpro.com. So that's probably what it is. It's probably just some Chinese company that's privately, they're just putting a different brand on it. So some of these companies, Amazon, for example, just go on Amazon and you'll find a ton of different brands. It's a lot of times it's the same few manufacturers, same handful of manufacturers, but they've got an array of brands, and they will, sell it, and the thing is, if one brand starts getting some bad reviews, well, they've got 100 more, so it doesn't matter to them. But there is a chance that this brand is just a private label brand. So some contractors, when they get big enough and they are selling enough product, they will sometimes have private label brands. No one in my area has that, but I've heard of that in some markets. So for example, if you had a company called, Blue Sky Heating and Air, there's probably a company out there called that. So let's say it's called Blue Sky Heating and Air. If they sold enough heating and air equipment, they could go to a manufacturer, and some of them do, and say to them, hey, I want to have, I want your equipment, but I want to call it Blue Sky or whatever, Blue, the Blue brand. And I want to have instead of a Goodman label or a Lennox label, I want the Blue Sky label. And there are brands out there that I've come across. And what you'll find is if you take the model number and Google it, you'll find who the actual manufacturer of that product is. So AC Pro is a family-owned heating and air conditioning distributor with Holly, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So It's just a private label brand. I think it's a Linux product. Yeah, so it's just a private label brand. That's okay. I would not be scared of a private label brand, but I would be, I don't want to say scared, but you got to understand what you're getting. I mean, if you're buying one of these off-brand Chinese brands on the internet and you get it and you install it and you get it for cheap, if you get 10 years out of it or 5 years out of it, great. Especially a lot of them, it's not the issues with the AC side of things in a lot of cases. It's usually the heating side of things that these off brands fall short on. If you're talking about just buying an off brand unit to put in and blow cold, a lot of them will blow cold as long as they hold the refrigerant charge. It's usually, just ask them who the manufacturer. Yeah. So, anyway, I was telling a story and then I got off topic because God did not create me to multitask. I cannot walk and chew bubble gum. Wow, that's what my dad used to always say. Boy, you can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. But I will remember in just a moment. Quick question: my heat pump system just won't stop the emergency heat. Does it need service? I think so. If my heat pump system just won't stop the emergency heat. So that could be a couple things. It could mean that it needs service. If the first stage heat is not keeping up or it's not, providing heat at all or very little heat, and it's going to second stage heat because of that, auxiliary heat, whatever verbiage your thermostat's calling it, then there is a possibility you have a problem with that heat pump. If it is a heat pump, I'm assuming, yeah, heat pump. But there's also a chance that it could be just the thermostat or the thermostat programming. So, for example, some thermostats, if there's a 2-degree discrepancy between the ambient temperature in the room and the set point that you have it set at, it's going to automatically bring on the auxiliary heat. A lot of folks get confused with that because they'll run a schedule and then think something is wrong. They'll have a schedule running that they'll have it, drop kind of cool when they're not there during the day, they're at work, and then they'll have it set to, be 7 degrees higher or 5 degrees higher for when they get home, and then the auxiliary heat comes on, and they think something's wrong. What they don't understand is that 2-degree heat droop is why it's bringing that auxiliary heat on. So that's why a lot of thermostats, I talk about the Honeywell 8000 a lot, because that's just the one it does everything I need it to do and nothing that I don't. And the 8000 has the heat droop that you can set, but it also has a backup heat stage timer that will give that first stage heat some time. It'll tell the thermostat, there might be that 2-degree discrepancy, but if you have the backup timer set for 30 minutes, for example, it's going to give that first stage heat 30 minutes to try to reach temperature before bringing on the auxiliary heat. I can't talk. See, normally I get to edit all this stuff out and you guys don't get to see all my that I do, but my editor, the guy that helps me edit videos, does. So when I'm on live, you guys get to hear all the toots. I am now getting estimates. I have a double wide. I have 2 Daikin quotes. One is a 3.5 ton SEER 2. And the other says DZ14 SA. These are for heat pumps. I can't find anything on the heat pump SEER 2. Well, you haven't been watching my videos. We've talked a lot about SEER 2 in my videos. SEER 2 is just the new ratings that came out on January 1st of this year. Some of the products, especially Daikin, was one of the first to go ahead and start rolling the SEER 2 stuff out onto the market. But you can still get some of the brands are calling the legacy, which is all of the equipment that's rated SEER 1, including the 14 SEER stuff, the DZ14 that you alluded to. But when that stuff is gone in certain states, so the state I'm in, when that stuff is gone, you won't be able to get it anymore. It's going to be gone. So depending on what state you're in, you might still be able to get it. I don't know. But in my state, once that, if it was manufactured before January 1st, you could still get it. But once it's gone, once it's all sold, it's gone. We will not be able to get it anymore. Do you keep the windows open? Forget about SEER. It's a number of basically means nothing. Say a 2-ton. What is your duct size? No way, 3.5 ton. So I will say, Tech Junkie, that with the mobile home furnaces, that I do see them sized, the capacity sized higher a lot of times, and that is simply because it's a high static application. So you'll see, so for example, in our area, you'll see single wides with 3-ton outdoor units and double wides with 3.5 or 4-ton outdoor units. So just throwing that out there. Thinking about it. 2-stage systems. Can the air handler be slowed down to run at 70% so it's not kicking off? Terry Snyder, get you a variable speed air handler when you pair it with that 2-stage system, and it will ramp down. Do you recommend using those outside AC compressor breathable screen cover for protection from leaves? It only covers the top. As long as you're keeping that clean, Apollo, I would not recommend that. A lot of companies, when they design these units to be outside, they're designed to be outside. So I would not be scared of leaves getting down in the unit unless it's inhibiting the fan in any way, or if you get so many leaves down in there that it's actually starting to get higher than the bottom of the coil. But these systems are meant to sit outside. So I think a lot of that stuff with the screens and stuff like that, I would not be worried about that. And because what happens is a lot of times those folks just don't keep them clean. And then they actually create more issues. They have their motor fail, or they just simply don't have enough air going across the coil with all of that. So as long as you're keeping it clean, I wouldn't worry about it, in my opinion. But it, in a lot of cases, folks don't keep them clean like they should. So, I wouldn't worry about it. My units sit outside underneath trees, and we just clean them up once a year. I have never needed AC before in SD County, but these past couple of years, the humidity is unbearable. I hear you, Mary. These last couple of years, it's been crazy. Here in the Midwest, people wrap their ACs so tight for winter mice build nests in there and cause problems. Really? That's crazy. Those mice, daggone. I'm not familiar with mobile home stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's its own animal. I was just talking to someone tonight that said they were going to be on our live chat. So shout out to them, those folks in Maryland that I was helping on our guide. They've got a mobile home furnace, and they've had trouble finding heating and air technicians to help them because a lot of the folks in their area are just not familiar with them. They're a different animal, and the electric furnaces, we have some gas customers with mobile home furnaces, but a lot of them are electric furnaces. Folks, a lot of these people putting up these manufactured housing or mobile homes, they're just literally going out and finding the cheapest thing they can stick in that hole. And so it has to be a high static furnace. So they'll get a furnace for however much they are, $800, $900, probably more than that now. I haven't priced one since all this inflation, but they'll do that. They'll get a coil for $300 to $500, and then they'll get a straight AC. They won't even do a heat pump. They'll do a straight AC outside. And a lot of folks, whether they go high SEER or not, just switching from a straight AC outdoor to a heat pump, they'll see a ton of savings when it comes time to replace that unit, their electric bill will sometimes, I mean, think about it. They're running straight heat strips on these electric furnaces until they put a heat pump out there. So all of these mobile homes, you know, if it's even a mild day, they're burning heat strips. Their electric bill is just cranking. And so we've had those customers that, I mean, I won't even quote them a straight AC. They'll say, well, I want to go back. And I'm like, well, then you can call somebody else, because the couple little bit extra, I say a couple $100, whatever the price difference is, you're going to make it back within months. With the first winter, you'll make it all back just from going from a straight AC to a heat pump on these mobile home setups. Their electric bill is significantly less. So anyway, mobile homes are their own animal. But if you do come across that, you got a mobile home furnace, you can't put an air handler in there. We've seen companies do that. They're not high static, and they don't get enough airflow through those, and they have other issues. And so, anyway, we had a heating and air company here locally. They were doing that, putting air handlers in and then undercharging the systems because there wasn't enough airflow across the evaporator coil. It was just nuts. Anyway, these guys just don't know what they're doing. I don't know everything, but I mean, if you don't know that, I mean, come on. I'm talking about heat and air guys. If you're a homeowner that don't know that, then that's, you shouldn't. But these heat and air guys that do these things without, they'll just completely switch up the equipment that was in there without even, reading an article. It's like, come on. Heat strips equals lots of electricity. That is correct. My heat pump electric bill is low. I am noticing a huge savings so far on my Daikin Fit and Daikin Mini Split. I'm on track to save $1,000 a year. That's awesome, man. That is awesome. I wonder if my Daikin rep, I should send him a screenshot of that. What is the best mini split I can buy on my own? I've debated. I mean, these days you can buy any mini split. I mean, it seems like you can buy whatever you want. So, but if you're planning on buying it and installing it yourself, that's a different story. But if you're talking about just buying it and having a pro install it, I mean, you can pretty much buy whatever you want these days, except for maybe, you might be hard to get your hands on like a Mitsubishi Hyperheat. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, it seems like you could pretty much buy whatever you want these days. The cheapest one, because it will break because you can't properly without all the tools. I've debated a mini split for my garage, but man, money. Hey, you only live once, QD. So get that mini split. Man, I wish I could remember that story I was telling. I'll watch this live back later and go back and be like, that was that story, and I never did finish it because I got sidetracked with Mary's off-brand. I was telling a story and I don't remember what it was. And then Mary asked me that story or asked me about that brand, and I didn't know. But Tech Junkie, you got to keep me on track, pal. Anyway, we just hired a new guy this past week. Oh, I remember the story I was telling. I was talking about we went to Waco, Texas this past week. That was the story I was telling. My wife and I went to Waco, Texas this past week, and her and her mother are huge. I finished the fish gut story. The moral of that story is we didn't have to go to court. That was the moral. But anyway, we went to Waco, Texas this past week. My wife and my mother-in-law are huge fans of Chip and Joanna Gaines. If you don't know who they are, they flip houses and they have a whole channel now. They've done so well that they have gone from HGTV to their own channel. And we did this tour that we were on. Now, I'm just going to tell you some of the things I heard on the tour. I have not vetted these facts. I don't know if they are 100% true, but I thought some of them were interesting enough that I thought I would share them. Anyway, it was just very interesting. So we go on this tour. It's essentially like a tour. If you've ever gone to LA and they do these tours of these celebrity houses, you know, you get on this tour bus. If you've ever done that, I don't know if any of you have ever done this, but we went to LA one time. We went to Beverly Hills and we did this tour through Hollywood and we saw these celebrity houses, and it's very similar to that. So you get on this tour bus, and yeah, my wife just got the book too, Ramon. But so you go on this tour and you get to see all the different houses they've restored. They have this castle that they've restored, and so on. They have these 2 city blocks that they bought, and it was basically like this rundown part of the city that, you know, was just full of crime and homelessness, and they brought it back to life. You know, we went there and there's restaurants and stores and this beautiful park area that my daughter played in and harassed other kids for an hour. And it was just such a good time. But anyway, what I thought I would share is I would not consider myself a fan of theirs up to this point. It's, you know, I do heating and air for a living. I'm always in houses being restored, and it's almost kind of like, you know, that nothing, watching a show like that does nothing for me. My wife loves it. She just loves to see what they can do and restore these houses. But I've just never considered myself a fan. But after taking that tour, I became a fan of theirs because of some of the struggles that they've gone through, and hearing some of the things. Now, according to this lady that was giving the tour, she was telling us a couple things. The first thing that I thought was interesting, and she started the tour with us, is that they are not loved. They're not beloved in their community by everyone. That some of the folks in Waco are haters, if you will. And it's very unfortunate because, you know, one of the things that this lady was saying is how great things are there now. They've turned around so much in that area, from a standpoint of, first of all, some of these houses were literally houses that no one could live in, and now that someone lives there. But just turning the community, you know, you look at Magnolia, the 2 city blocks that they have turned around, and there's bakery there. The bakery, my wife and mother-in-law went to that. The line to get in was wrapped around the city block. And it was just such a cool experience to see, you know, what they're doing there and the good that they're creating. So I just thought that was interesting that they've got haters of their own in that area. And I don't know what they hate about them. The lady pointed out that property taxes are higher because of them. Well, yeah, I mean, if you restore a house that is junky, and put a coat of paint on it, and of course they do more than that, but they, you know, of course the property taxes are going to be a little higher because now it's not a dump. My daughter was at the bakery while she was in college. She has her own thoughts. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say to that. I'm sure she does have her own thoughts. Everybody hates their boss, you know, but again, just from the outside looking in, I mean, you got this area that was crap, and now it's not, you know, if nothing else, they've done good in the world that way. And, there was something else I was going to point out, but anyway, I just thought that was interesting, you know, to see all that. It was a good experience. I would recommend it to anybody that if you ever do want to make a pilgrimage to Waco, then you should. We lived in Waco from 89 to 93. Yeah. So, I, on the other hand, was more interested because I love history. We did go by, where the Branch Davidians, complex is, and I didn't get out, but we did go by it. And if you don't know that story, look it up. But most people, I feel like, should have at least heard of it. It was a cult there that ultimately, they say one thing happened. The ATF and FBI say something else happened. But ultimately, here's what happened: a whole bunch of people died, and that's sad. So if nothing else, that some of those people were innocent children, and it was that is just a sad situation, is what it is, regardless of who. Of course, they all want to blame each other, but it's just a sad situation. But we went by there, and it's just, I think for me is, you see this stuff on the TV or documentaries, and then here it is in front of you, this place that actually exists. And so it was almost kind of surreal, to be honest with you, that to be feet away from where that happened. It was just a surreal experience. So anyway, I'll get off of that. You guys aren't on here to hear my stories about Waco, Texas. There's proof. Kept it clean. There is reduced crime. Yeah, the crime alone that they have reduced in Waco. Now, I'm not saying they single-handedly did it, but it sounds like they've at least had a hand in it, that they have done their best to make the world a better place. And because of that, there's less crime there now. So boom, Can a Daikin fit heat pump be installed in a double wide that has all electric furnace? No, I don't even need to read the rest of this question. If you have a double wide or a mobile home with the original ductwork, you need to go back with a high static electric furnace or gas furnace. You can pair that with a high SEER outdoor unit with coil, but you cannot go communicating technology or an air handler or any of that. You're going to be creating issues by doing that. What's your take on ozone and UV lights for people who suffer from allergies? I love UV lights. The ones we install do not create ozone, and UV lights, if you know nothing about indoor air quality or ionizers or filtration, here's just a small tip. I think my personal opinion is every single house in America that has an air conditioner in the heating and air system, and I would say all systems, whether it has AC or not, but if it has AC with an evaporator coil that can get wet, which they do, and can also create an environment where microbial growth can become a thing, creating odors and other issues, I think UV lights, UVC creating lights are a good thing. So I think they should all have that. That's my opinion. Well, the last part is a loaded question. Depends on a bunch of factors. I'm not sure what they're talking about. I was there in 93. When that burned down, I was heading to an Italian. Oh, man, that is crazy. The Branch Davidians of Waco. You had to be under a rock if you didn't hear about that. Yeah, I mean, if you were alive is the point, Mary. That's the crazy thing is, to be honest with you, in 93, I would have been 9 years old. 9 years old. So there are adults today that were not alive when that happened. So that, that's the crazy thing about it. And somebody was just telling me the other day, we were talking about, well, not the other day, it was back in September. And we were talking about, the September 11th incident or attack would probably be the better word. And 64 is not old. 64 is not old. But there are kids today. Well, I say they're kids. There are adults today. They are technically adults who were not alive when September 11th happened. And I was in high school. I remember where I was and all that. Most people do know where they were. Neither one of those does anything for anyone with allergies. You want MERV 13. Yeah, see, Tech Junkie, me and you, man, we need to grab a coffee because we disagree on a lot of things. I think anyone with allergies, if they have microbial growth or mold or anything like that growing in their primary drain pan and or evaporator coil, I have seen UV lights do some crazy things. I told the story on my last live stream, and so I won't tell the entire story again. But there was an old M coil and a ream that I could just simply not get clean, and so it was my first ever UV light. I think it was my first ever UV light that I ever sold at Griffin Air, and we put a UV light in there. And I became a believer because we went back a few months later, 6 months later, to do their preventative maintenance, and the coil was shiny as a nickel. And that was the day I became a believer, because all that black gunk, mold, I've been trained by different companies to not say the M word, M as in mold. But so I don't say it a whole lot, at least in my professional life when I'm out selling heating and air systems. We always say microbial growth, or, I know some folks say bacterial growth, but I became a believer that day. My old boss used to say they were snake oil, that, UV lights, they're just trying to sell stuff over there. And you may need to discuss over a beer. But I became a believer. Sandy Cohen, rest in peace. We put a UV light in for him back. It was one of the first ones I ever sold. I think it was the first one at Griffin Air, I think. Next time I'm in Williamsburg, maybe I like it. Williamsburg, that's not far from me. UV lights sounds cool in most environments. Cool, pun intended. I don't like UV lights because they don't do much for the occupants. For the units, they are fine. Yeah, I mean, I think part of it too is a lot of heat and air guys like to point out that, well, they don't clean the air. That there's no clinical test proven that they clean the air. A lot of heat. I just listened to a podcast last month where they were talking about how it doesn't clean 100% of the air, sort of like a filter, filters 100% of the air when it goes through there. But they can clinically or say definitively that it does clean 20% of the air. And the analogy he used is that air is going to continue to be recirculated through that heating and air system. I don't know about all that, so I don't normally even dive into that. I don't go down that rabbit hole a whole lot. But what I do know is what I've seen, and that is an evaporator coil and the primary drain pan with growth in it, with a UV light installed, and it kills it. It's gone. It makes it all new again. That's what I have seen, and that's what I believe. And that's when I installed one in my own heating and air system. And that's when I started telling everyone that, if you don't want an ionizer, if you don't want a fancy filter with a high MERV rating, at least get a UV light is my 2 cents. Do you know what an iWave? Yeah, we sell iWaves all the time. What brand UV light do you recommend? I don't really have a brand preference. The one that we sell the most of, though, is the Blue Tubes. What is Blue Tube? What is that? I know that the parent company of all of that is now Diversitech, but what is the company? Blue Tube. Fresh Air. Fresh Air is the name of the company, and they make other products with different brand names. But Fresh Air UV. Stay away from the purifier. iWave is an additive air purifier. It creates bad stuff from worse stuff. Oh, tech junkie. I would just look up some of the videos on iWave, Mary, if you are interested in the iWave. It's an ionizer. There's other ionizers out there. Some guys will sell the Halo and some of that. We sell the iWave, and they are essentially they're an ionizer that can do several things, but essentially it makes different particles in the air heavier so that your it'll either drop out of the air or your filter will catch them. Another thing it does is it kills mold. I can't, they cannot clinically come out and say that it kills certain viruses, but it does do things that can kill viruses, I think is the way they word it. So already replace the evaporator coil and outside condenser fan motor and module. Thank goodness I have a York 10-year parts and labor warranty. Awesome. Great info. High MERV equals high static pressure. That is true, Ramon. In a lot of cases, that is definitely true. We've had a lot of good luck with the MERV 13 stuff that April Air makes. We have had one customer install a MERV 16 air filter, and I think if you just account for that and you are taking your static pressure readings and keeping everything in line, then you should not have too many issues. So we haven't had many problems with that, but I have heard horror stories with that. We had a customer a couple months ago that kept getting, I think it's the B3 error on the Daikin high seer stuff, and my Daikin rep kept saying, "Oh, it's an airflow issue. It's your static pressures." What we ended up finding out is it actually was not. It was a problem with the gas valve was not opening up all the way, and the sensor or the limit switch that sends that. I'm getting probably a little too technical these days on all this, but ultimately the sensor that tells the thermostat, hey, it's gotten too hot here on the housing of the burner setup. I'm not getting enough airflow. It was getting too hot because there actually was an issue with the gas pressures. And it wasn't the pressures themselves. We had plenty of gas coming in. It was the valve was not opening up like it should. It was an LP. We had an LP kit installed in it, and it just wasn't doing what it was supposed to. So we ended up going through and replacing the valve and kit, and it fixed the issue. Not true at all. Size the filter. Yeah. So as long as you're keeping that in mind, what you're saying is correct. Higher MERV will have a higher static pressure, but is it going to be such a high static pressure that it's going to be an issue? The answer is not always yes. There are times when the answer is it's added some static pressure, but it's not too much, Sounds good. It's part of my installation tomorrow. Nice, Mary. Mary, what are you getting? Let us know. I think you might be the one that was telling us that brand. So you're getting, it sounds like a UV light and an iWave with that as well. So that's good. That's what we do. So with our high seer stuff, we include an iWave and a UV light with the installation. Why spend the money on equipment when the solution to pollution is dilution, as in bring in fresh air outside? Yeah, I mean, every house is different. And the reason I say that is I know what you're saying and bringing in ventilation, some fresh air. But that, to me, bringing in fresh air does not necessarily fix the evaporator coil issue that I was talking about. So, but I know what you're saying. It makes the air safer to breathe. And sometimes it's a twofold, I don't know. I think it's there's different, every house is different. That's what I say. There's different ways to skin a cat. And I don't know. I don't want to get into an argument with anybody because if I say something that's off base on here, then they'll come after me, Have you done a video on ERVs? I don't know that I've done a video on specifically on ERVs. But if you could let me know what maybe more specific of what you would, be interested in knowing. For anyone that doesn't know, an ERV, some brands call them EEVs, some of them call it EXVs, but it's essentially the metering device. And instead of it being mechanical, like a TXV would be, usually those are installed on a communicating system, and it's electronic metering device. So it's got something opening the solenoid, the metering device, electrically. Company has good ratings. They're very patient with me, offering a 3-year free maintenance too. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think it's unneeded for the first year, but I mean, if they're going to continue to maintain that system for another 2 years, not bad. Ventilator when you're living location. Anyway, anybody have any questions? Any questions that we can help you with? Oh, my TV is talking to me. My TV was repeating everything all of a sudden. I have a 2-story home with a thermostat upstairs and downstairs. I only have one heater. What am I drinking? I don't know if I should answer that question. They haven't paid me any money. I'm just kidding. I get these energy drinks on Amazon, and I like the taste of them. I mean, they're supposed to be healthier than your average energy drink. I don't know if that's true, but I do like the taste of them. So that's what I'm drinking. Only have one heater. Starting today, I have no heat downstairs, only upstairs. Thermostat on downstairs. What could be the problem? Sounds like a zoning issue. If you only have one system and you have an issue with one of the zones, then you have an issue with the zoning. So it could be the thermostat, could be the module, could be the damper, could be, a number of different things, but definitely sounds like a zoning issue if you don't have any issues upstairs in the other zone. Mitsubishi agree, serious price difference. So I am not a good person to ask that question because I am very, very biased. But I'll be honest with you. I have worked on some. Now I'm going to get some haters. I know somebody's going to probably come out of the woodwork and want to fight me on this. But these guys that keep saying that Gree is the same quality as these other higher premium brands, it's just not. I mean, it's simply not. They would love for you to think that it is, but it's just not. Now, if you tell me what specific products you're talking about, I can compare them. But if you're talking about mini splits, to me, it's not as good of a quality product. And if you're talking about the Gree Flex, then it's not a communicating system, which it serves its purpose. We've installed a lot of the Bosch non-communicating stuff. But it's just not as, in my opinion, it's not as good of a quality. They would want to fight you on that, but it's just not, in my opinion. Nothing I've laid hands on would lead me to believe that it's as good of a quality. So for a 4-ton, you would need 2 24-inch by 24-inch filters. So the general rule in what's a good question. So here's the general rule in residential. Now, taking into account the ductwork, that's a whole nother topic, right? So you're just asking about the filters. Usually we say 200 square inches per ton. So you'll have enough area on that furnace for it to be quiet. Now, if your ductwork itself is undersized, that's a whole nother topic. But if you're saying you've got 2 24 by 24s, that's 576 square inches times 2. That's 1,152. And you said a 4-ton. So that would be over 200 square inches per ton. So you would be fine with that. Yes. Gree is not communicating. Flex condenser plus air handler. Yeah, I mean it's just not as good of a product in my opinion. But I mean, here's the thing. There's a lot of guys out here that love them. So if, you know, if that's the route you go, I'm not saying you're making a mistake. I would not want to be someone's first, you know, I wouldn't want to be their guinea pig, you know. Oh, we just started selling the Flex. We'd love for you to try it out. I would not want to be their first, but there are guys out here that swear by them. There are guys that might even comment on this video and tell me how wrong I am. Flex's supplier in our area invited me to go take their class to install their equipment, and I did not take them up on that because I had something going that day. If they invite me again, I may go. I don't know. But the bottom line is, you know, whether it's Bosch, the Flex, Allied, all this non-communicating stuff, you just got to know what you're getting. Now, if you're comparing it to a single stage system, especially a brand that's more lower, you know, like a more price competitive brand or product, and you decide to go with one of these non-communicating inverter systems, if the price is good, you know, I'm not, you know, out of the realm of thinking that it's not a bad idea. You may, first of all, it'll save you money if it's an inverter system, a higher SEER system, but it's just not the same. You don't have the humidity control. You don't have the alerts that you would get. You don't have the capabilities. You don't have the energy efficiency because of the capability of a communicating system being able to communicate, you know, that the outdoor unit can tell the indoor unit and thermostat, hey, it's a mild day out here today. We don't need to ramp up and draw a bunch of energy. Let's just ramp up and run at 30% capacity and cool this place down and you know, save this energy. Humidity control, tech junkie. But ultimately, I think again, here's the thing. I put a Bosch in my house years ago when they first came out. I put one in my house, one of the first IDS, the 1.0 Bosch. We put them in my house. It was time for me to replace my system, and I put one in my house. So I don't think that they're useless, but I knew even back then I was getting a really good price on it. And I put it in my house, and I saved money. In fact, in my house, I had a package heat pump with electric heat strips that sat outside in the elements, and it was single stage. So I put in a split heat pump system, brought the air handler in, rerouted the ductwork, and then I also installed that non-communicating inverter. And, our electric bill has been much more manageable since then. I have a 3.5 ton heat pump. When it shuts down, it makes a sort of bang sound. Tech says it's a normal sign of the compressor. What do you think? What's normal? Kirk, it's hard to say without actually being there and seeing it. I think if you are saying to me, it used to not make this sound and now it is, then there are things you can do. So the first thing is you can look at installing a soft start and see if that helps on the compressor. It essentially is what it sounds like. It, instead of it hard starting and getting that thing going, it soft starts that compressor, and it doesn't have that initial bang when it starts up. But the other thing that you can maybe look at is some of these products like AC Renew or Diversitex Boost Juice, where you are essentially lubricating the compressor. You're giving it a new life as far as fresh oil. I did a video on that recently, and on the Boost Juice probably, I don't know, a few months ago. And a lot of folks were coming to me and saying, hey, you did that video. I can't find anybody that can even get it in my area. So we started selling it on our website. So we've sold a few, and, you know, it's real easy to install. I think a pro should install it, but I think a pro should, you know, do all these things, right? Some of you guys tell me it's because I'm greedy, but it's not hard to install. You just, you know, put one side of it on the high port, the other side on the low port, and push a button, and you add the boost juice in there. So that might help. The boost juice lowers amp draw. It and it, you know, lubricates the compressor. Compressors get noticeably quieter after adding boost juice. I've experienced that myself firsthand. And Boost Juice has not paid me any money to say that. I wish they would, but they haven't. But, you know, that might be something that you could look at adding. And again, if you don't have anyone in your area that can get it, you can go on our website, New HVAC Guide, and go to the product section and buy it from us. It gets in the 90s here in the summer. Maybe it's overcharged a little bit, Kirk. It could be, you know, I mean, it just depends. What's the point of variable output outdoor unit if you're indoor single stage? So Eric, that's been the question, right? So when those systems first came out, the 1.0s, actually, you had to really monitor your airflow, because if you have too high of airflow and the system ramps up to that, they were having capacity issues and humidity issues. The system was not running long enough. It was essentially oversized for the space it was in. So it's a really good point that even if you have a variable speed outdoor unit and you have these constant torque air handlers, essentially a single speed indoor unit, the only advantage becomes the capability of the system still being able to ramp down, up and down, by monitoring that temperature on the coil rather than just simply running at whatever speed, regardless of what the temperatures are. But from an energy consumption standpoint, or a humidity standpoint, from a humidity standpoint, it's an issue. It really is, in comparison. So the 3-ton works great. Just a bang at the end of the cycle. Yeah. I mean, I would look at, if it were me, if I was talking to my own family, Kirk, I would say that I would probably look at a product like Boost Juice and see if it fixes your issue. Here's the thing. There's no way to know if it's going to fix it until it's added, but it could. It really depends on what the bang is. Is the bang the compressor, or is the bang, we've had customers that the ductwork, so the ductwork's blowing through there and it didn't get cross braked, and you've got this big piece of sheet metal there that's getting bowed out like a pickle jar. And then when the system turns off, it bangs. The metal clinks back in, and that's what they're hearing. So it just really depends on what that bang noise is. If it really is the compressor, if your tech is saying, or your pro is saying, oh yeah, that's your that's your outdoor unit, that's your compressor, well then, then you got to look at solutions for, possibly quieting that down. I just got quoted a GE heat pump. Does GE communicate with the indoor unit? I am not familiar with, so GE, here's the deal with GE. I don't know where these have come back, because they have not made it to my area, these GE heat pumps. GE as a company years ago was actually bought out by American Standard. And so for the longest time, so GE was one of the first companies, I think the first company that was making that spine fin coil that Trane is known for to this day. Could be wrong on that. I could be wrong. But American Standard bought GE, and I think that was in the 60s, maybe early 70s. And then, of course, Trane ended up buying the American Standard name, at least the heating and air side of it. And so that's to this day how Trane ended up with this spine fin coil that they hang their hat on. But since then, it seems like in the last year or two, I was helping somebody on our guide that also had someone quote a GE product name. So I'm not sure where that's come from. I don't know who's licensing that name. I can tell you that I would be very surprised if it's GE themselves, if General Electric has gotten back into the game. If I were to guess, it's probably one of the main manufacturers who's now licensing that name now that it's open again. So I don't know who that is. I'm looking at pictures of the system on the internet, and it doesn't jump right out at me. But I just from a standpoint of what that system is or if it's good, I can't answer that question because we don't even have a supplier for that in our area. So I assumed the speed of the indoor blower would always match the output of the No, hey Eric, so I can't speak for all the brands, but I can tell you that the non-variable indoor units for Bosch, the way they are designed is the indoor fan motor, whatever you have the speed set at, it blows. And then the outdoor unit monitors the suction pressure or the temperature, however you want to look at it, but the suction pressure coming back and will adjust, ramp up or down the inverter compressor to meet whatever that target set point is. So that's how that works, and that's how they're able to call it an inverter system, but it's a non-communicating inverter system. The dealer that quoted me a GE normally sells American Standard, but they said American Standard heat pumps are out of stock in my size downflow. That's why they quoted me a GE. Interesting. GE was bought by Trane, I think in the early 80s. GE was a good unit then, but Trane messed that all up. That's pretty funny. When I first started Griffin Air, I had a GE heat pump that we pulled out of a house, and it was still operable. And I'm wanting to say that thing was made it was definitely the 80s, but maybe the 70s. It was really old. So your thoughts on spine fin coil design? I think spine fin is good. I sold American Standard for a number of years and fully believed in the product. It wasn't until a few things happened that and it nothing horrible that it wasn't anything just catastrophic, but just a few hiccups here and there that were painful as a small heating and air company. And along came Daikin, and they said, well, give us a try. And I did. I sold both for a little bit of time, and it didn't take long for me to make the switch to Daikin. So actually, it's on my hat right there, Daikin. But I didn't realize until recently how crooked it is on the hat. So, none of you guys have made fun of me for that, but you should, because whoever made my hats, I didn't realize until recently how crooked the logo is on my hats. Look at that. So when I'm wearing it on my head, it's crooked. But anyway, we're going to wrap up here shortly. So cool of you guys to be on here. Such a late hour. Here on the East Coast, it is almost 10 o'clock at night. We started the show at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to do this every week. As long as I can, right? There might be weeks that I just simply can, or if, a holiday falls on it, but, I appreciate all the support you guys have given us. I shared in a live video a couple months ago, and I'll share it again. I had something happen to me, about a year ago now that ultimately I had said something in a video about a brand, and they came after me. They came after my little company. Their employees and the owner were writing bad reviews about Griffin Air on Better Business Bureau and on Google. And they came after us and attacked us pretty bad. And I'm not going to share who that is. I know some of you get mad when I'm vague about that, but my point in telling you all this is the more support I get on this on the YouTube front, the more honest I can be, because what it did was it made me reel back a little bit and realize that I still have employees that count on the income that Griffin Air brings in. And I can't just get on here and be willy-nilly with my thoughts all the time and to say all these different things. And so I realized the hard way that we are vulnerable when we don't really have free speech, because someone also has the freedom to attack you publicly on the internet when I am too honest. So the more support we get, the more honest I can be, the more I can tell you when companies are coming at us like that. Appreciate this. I don't know, but I'm an HVAC geek. I work in finance. Nice. Kirk could probably teach us a few things on the finance side of things. But yeah, so I'm going to do this every week. The more support we get, the more honest I can be, the more I can tell you when certain brands are not on the up and up. I think ultimately it should be obvious when no one in your area, when no heating and air companies, reputable companies are selling a certain brand. And I'm not going to say what brand it is, but if nobody in your area sells that brand, there might be a reason for that. I'll just say that. Anyway, we'll be back again next week, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. I still got a couple minutes that if you guys want to throw a question in there, we can, talk about. But in the meantime, I do have some videos coming out this week talking about a few things. I have recently received our first couple sponsors on the channel, and don't get scared. I'm not selling out, you guys. I have had several companies approach me to sponsor videos, and I turned them down because I'm not going to be LeBron James, who's on the paleo diet and does Ruffles commercials, it's just always funny to me when I see him on a Ruffles commercial. But we're only going to work with brands that we believe in and that are doing good things in the industry or are good for you. So if you see me, I'm not selling out. We are going to have a few brands sponsor a few videos, and I appreciate their support as well. That helps us, keep the lights on and continue to do this. But I've been picky about who we're going to work with, on this channel, because, I could get on here and be a sellout, and then you make a bad choice based on something I said. And that's not the goal here, so we're only going to give you good advice and, talk about LeBron as a Sprite spokesman, and he definitely does not drink Sprite. Yeah, exactly. So, Kobe was a Sprite guy too, I think, if I remember correctly. So, that's kind of the point, right? If you guys come on a channel for heating and air advice, and I get on here and give you some bad advice, that's not the goal here. The whole goal starting out was to give out secrets and give out information that a lot of heating and air guys are trying to keep tight-lipped, and to actually help some folks there. So anyway, thank you guys. I'm going to sign off now. We'll see y'all next week, 8:30 Tuesday night, Eastern Standard Time. So whatever the time that is in your area, and y'all have a great week. Take care.